A very good afternoon. Welcome all. As we know, Sir is going to speak about rice fortification and how this scheme has actually metamorphosed and changed the entire PDS system. Over to you, sir.
So good afternoon to all the friends from the press and my colleagues from the DFPD. This is a subject which actually is very unique in the sense that it's an initiative that we had taken a couple of years back to further our aim of a anemia book Bharat. So as you would be aware that in the NFHS 5 and other reports that are coming in, they showed that the levels of anemia in children and also in women of different age groups, particularly the children from 6 months upwards up till the primary and secondary level, and also the women in general, and particularly the pregnant and lactating mothers. So their levels of anemia were very high, and that's actually causing a lot of burden on the health system, and also it's a national loss to have the population of this kind of category, which is not in the best of health, is something which the nation cannot afford. So towards that end, we started the initiative about 2 years, 3 years back. And why we are having this meeting is because of the fact that exactly a year back, on 7th of April 22 to be precise, the cabinet decided to universalize this initiative. This initiative was only taken, let's say in the first phase, in the pilot phase, it was done in the ICDS and also in the PM portion, that is the midday meal program. And based on the success that we found in the entire initiative, we extended that in the phase 2 to 291 high burden and these aspirational districts. And a year back, the cabinet decided that we are now going to universalize. That is, the entire TPDS, the entire public distribution system, 80 crore of population which is being served by the public distribution system would now be supplied fortified rice. So we are now well on way to achieve this particular target, and we are hoping, although the timeline given to us is till March of 2024, but we are hoping that we will be able to achieve it earlier, and we geared up our machinery in terms of the FRK manufacturers. We will have a presentation as well to give you more details, but just to, as a opening remark, just to mention that this is a unique and a very successful initiative of the central government, which has given us extremely good results and positive results. And we are extremely enthused by the response that we've got from the general population also. There were certain misconceptions about this, but as happens with any new program, these misconceptions get resolved along the way, as has been happening in this particular case as well. And we are hoping that this will lay the foundation of a healthy India, India which would be able to achieve the targets that have been set in terms of our economic and social growth. So with these few words, I'd request my colleague Ms. Palka Sani, the Joint Secretary, to give a short presentation about what's been happening in this program.
Thank you, sir, and we welcome you all today on this very noble cause of fortification anniversary, so to speak. So we begin, as we know, as sir just mentioned, that anemia happens. Next slide, please. Anemia happens to be a condition which is afflicting a large population of children below the age of 5 years and women in the reproductive age group, as well as men. And these happen to be the most nutritionally challenged groups of population that we cater to in our PDS system as well as in the ICDS and MDM. But we do happen to see that there is a nutritional deficiency also that we need to target in addition to the food security. Next slide, please. So this is the kind of population that is rice dependent. So per capita dependency on rice as a staple food is as high as 65%. So therefore fortification of rice as to begin with as a food grain. And as sir mentioned, about 80 crore people that we target in the PDS system are largely dependent on this rice for their food needs. And we are able to now supply 34 lakh metric tons of rice to ICDS. This caters to lactating mothers and children below the age of 5 years, and the PM Portion program to the school-going beneficiaries.
So this covers a large population of the nutritionally challenged group that I just mentioned. A brief of how this rice fortification happens. It's a very interesting phenomena where three major nutrients, iron, folic acid, and vitamin B12, something that we at times pop in as capsules, are then converted into kernels. They are called kernels, where fortified rice kernels are made, and then they are mixed in a particular ratio, which is 1:100 in this case. So we mix fortified rice with our custom mill rice, and in terms of its aroma, in terms of its taste, it is as good as normal rice, so to speak. And then it is bagged, and then it is sent to the target group. Next slide, please. This is an important slide where the entire ecosystem, how it functions and how compatible and how easy it has become that all the stakeholders are involved. I'll begin with the blending capacity, where the private sector, having an assured demand, has been able to now we have more than 18,000 mills which have this blending infrastructure in place. They are our support group when it comes to getting this initiative in place. 48 laboratories. This is again very important, as sir mentioned, about conceptions, misconceptions, quality. So all of them are FSSAI certified laboratories which check the quality from time to time. In terms of the availability of this rice today, as of date, we have 217 lakh metric tons available, both with FCI and our decentralized procurement. We also have a rice fortification dashboard to look at the progress and update on this. Then in terms of our stakeholders, today also we have experts from AIMS talk about it. So Niti Aayog is working with all important stakeholders to quell any misconception, if at all, in terms of the impact of this initiative. And as I mentioned, the FSSAI standards are very much in place. And as sir mentioned, today we are talking about scaling it up from the pilot and then from ICDS to complete TPDS. Please, next slide. So this is the scaling up that we talked about after the Honorable Prime Minister announced this on the Independence Day 2021. We moved from 35 lakh metric tons only in ICDS and PM Poshan. Then we moved up to TPDS in targeted districts, and now we look up to 350 lakh metric tons, the entire quantity to be supplied to TPDS, other welfare schemes, ICDS, and the PM Poshan program in a phased manner. And as I showed you, the ecosystem is in place, the stakeholders are on board, and we are now looking up to supplying each and every beneficiary of all the social safety net schemes with only fortified rice to take care of this nutritional deficiency. We keep hearing about India being food secure but not nutrition secure. So this is an effort by the government of India to make sure that this population is nutritionally secure as well. Next slide, please. So as I just mentioned, from phase 1 to phase 3, the pilot project moved, and we are moving to phase 3 commencing this year from 1st of April as we speak, covering all possible safety net schemes only with fortified rice. And I think that with this in place, I'm sure that the population across the country in the most backward districts also will not now be dependent on any other supplement, but it will be a part of their food habits, because it's very difficult for any system to get supplements being supplied to so many different type of target population. So we'll be happy to take questions. Thank you. I think we first have the experts speak, please. Yeah, thank you.
So we have Dr. Kapil Yadav from AIMS. So of course he's the technical person and an expert on this matter, and he'll just make a short presentation about what have been the technical or the research findings on how this entire initiative has been working, and in case any misconceptions, those can also get clarified.
Thank you so much, sir. I have been allotted 5 minutes to make this presentation. Next slide, please. This will be a brief outline of presentation, and AIMS has been involved with another success story of universal salt iodization, and we are grateful to the ministry that we have been given opportunity to be associated with the next big agenda, not only on national level, but maybe at the global level also in form of rice fortification. Next slide, please. So the 5 messages that I want all of you, the friend from press, to take back is: uh, through fortification, we not only address anemia, but much larger, bigger problem known as the hidden hunger, which has multiple micronutrient deficiencies. There are around 20, 30 odd micronutrients which are deficient in our diet. And India is one of the leaders in terms of these micronutrient deficiencies, but we are hopeful with this intervention that story would change. Food fortification is a complementary strategy to address hidden hunger. The primary strategy continues to be food, but there are other options available, including medical intervention in form of supplementation, and this will form what I say the foundation of competing or overcoming this hidden hunger. Rice fortification is an effective strategy to address hidden hunger and anemia. It is evidence based. There are several studies available from across India and globally also. I'll briefly elaborate on the studies available because that is the main mandate of today's presentation. On the safety concern, as far as public health use is concerned, there is no cause of worry as far as rice fortification or any food fortification is concerned. There is no risk in hemoglobinopathies, including sickle cell and thalassemia. Iron overload also, there is no discernible evidence that it causes any significant iron overload. Now we are also talking, some people are talking about change in microbiome and its association with infection, but that is still in a very early stages and there is no conclusive evidence on that also. Besides science, what we have realized, and that is one of the mandate of AIMS, is unless until we have support from other stakeholders and ministries, we will not be able to achieve the success that scientists have identified. So we need science program society, and that is what our learning has been in universal standardization. And going forward, we are very happy with the progress that this program has managed over the last 2 or 3 years. But we need to focus on supply chain, quality assurance, monitoring, and the last, where the role of all of you come, is social behavior change communication. If the larger people are not aware and imbibe this rice fortification initiative of Government of India, all of us will fail. So appeal to all of you to please take home this message and give it to the larger audience in that context. Next slide, please. This all of us aware, there are several studies available. These are national level surveys which document that all of us, including some of us in this room, 50% of us in this room would be deficient in most of the parameters that we are talking about. So it is not something only for the poor people, the most marginalized. Even the most affluent people would have these deficiencies of various micronutrients. Next slide, please. So these are the health impact of these deficiencies: anemia, underweight in children, in pregnant mother, in WRA, iron deficiency, iodine deficiency disorder, vitamin A deficiency, vitamin D deficiencies. Next slide, please. So Anemia Mukt Bharat was an ambitious program launched by Honorable Prime Minister on 14th April 2018. We are nearing the 5th anniversary of this program, sir. And food fortification was one of the key intervention of this program. Next slide. So this just puts in a larger context, as when we talk about anemia or hidden hunger, there are several interventions available and food fortification is one of the key intervention in this. But we have to be mindful that other things also needs to be done to overcome these problems. Next slide. India is not unique. More than 140 countries in world have fortification of one food vehicle or the other in various forms. Next slide. Now coming to the evidence, so these are the studies that have been done by Indian scientists in Indian context, and several leading institutions are engaged with these programs. They were started way back in 2010. So the scientists have been working on this area for now more than 10-15 years. The program has only been rolled out for last 2 or 3 years. There's conclusive evidence not only on improvement in anemia, but also in terms of iron deficiency. Because 50% are anemic, but there are another 25% who are not anemic but have iron deficiency. So around 75% population would be target of these interventions. There are several studies available from Bangalore, Hyderabad. Next slide. We have one from Andhra Pradesh. Primarily these were done in rice eating population. So that's why you see a predominance of South Indian states. In Gujarat, we did a later study. Next slide. So these are the evidences from global. From Bangladesh, we have a large trial which showed a similar 11% decrease in anemia. So with one intervention alone, which is very cost effective, can reach out to large population, you can reduce anemia from current level of 40-50% to say 10, 20 or 30%. And there's a study from this Yunnan district of China. Again, the same results were observed. Next slide. So even from developed countries, we have several studies available on this. Next slide. So this was a work that we did around 2-3 years back when we started looking at rice. So we collated around 20 odd studies that were available on rice fortification, and this is called this meta-analysis, the highest form of scientific literature that is evidence is there, where various studies you collate and summarize. So it was seen that anemia prevalence decreases and hemoglobin improves by around 0.5 gram to 0.25 gram. So this will shift your hemoglobin curve in a larger population. Next slide. So there are some concern regarding the safety of iron fortified foods in certain disease conditions. So what I say, there's a quote from Mahabharata that I always quote: Ashwathama hato, naro na kunjar. That Ashwathama has died, but not the Prince Ashwathama, but the elephant Ashwathama. So there is a lot of myth around the safety profile, specifically when it comes to. So it does not lead to iron overload in thalassemia trait and sickle cell trait. That is this statement I can endorse, and there's ample evidence globally. Many countries, I showed 140 countries are doing these intervention, and some of these countries, the thalassemia trait and sickle cell traits are much more than our population. Even in the thalassemia major and sickle cell disease, these are a very severe form of these two diseases, and the numbers are very, very less. In that, they are also iron deficient condition per se. So as a medical doctor, when I sit in my OPD in AIMS, I see a patient with thalassemia major, I give him iron supplements. And the difference we have to appreciate in iron supplementation, I'm giving them 60 milligram of iron. Here in through rice, you are giving somewhere around 4 milligram of iron. So the difference is around 10-20 fold. So as a medical doctor, I'm prescribing that amount to these patients. So this is even 10 times, 20 times less. So it is perfectly safe even in this population. But there is some risk. Why I said ki Ashwathama has died, the animal has died. So only in some disease patient who are on repeated blood transfusion, who have been given blood 20 or 30 times, in those I need to be careful. So amongst the population who have disease, that numbers could be in hundreds. Among those who are multiple blood transfusion, there are very, very few. Even AIMS sees hardly few patients in a year of these kind. In that, you need to be careful. Even in that, it's not an absolute contraindication because we give them some medicine which are known as iron chelators. So in that, iron excess can be managed. So this medically, we have that intervention. It is known. Globally, nowhere you have this contraindication for iron fortified foods across the world. Next slide. Same is the scenario we talk about iron in the gut and microbiome and infection. Some people talk about excess iron can lead to certain infection. This is still a research question. There is not much evidence. AIMS group, in fact, 2 Saturdays back, we were in an ICMR meeting. We were asked by ICMR to do a study on this in India. So there is still an exploratory area. As of today, I can conclusively say, from public health perspective, there is no risk of iron fortification on infection profile of children or anybody. Next slide. So this, I'll just skip through it. Besides only science alone, I earlier mentioned, there are certain other factors, feasibility, people's value and preference. So if just by reporting the half truths around this fortification, we will jeopardize the science around it. Because people's value and belief system, if they don't believe in our science, the intervention will not take off. And we went through this journey, sir, in case of universal salt dietization. It took us 20 or 30 years to overcome back then. And we are grateful to the current government and the ministry that now, within 1 or 2 years, we are able to overcome this debate. The kind of discussion we are having took us 20, 30 years, because that was in 60s and 70s. Next slide. Risk benefit analysis. Any intervention would have some amount of risk compared, as I explained, but if the benefit is 1,000-fold and risk is only 0.0001%, then obviously you go with the benefits of that intervention. Next slide. This is the same this thing. Lastly, just I want to clarify on one thing. There have been some discussion about iron fortification leading to diabetes mellitus. So there is one paper from Mayo Clinic in USA, but very cleverly the word that is hidden is that study is only observational study, preliminary study, but it talks about heme iron leading to diabetes mellitus. Heme iron is iron from animal source. Animal source also red meat. वो इंडिया में वैसे ही उसका कंजम्पशन बहुत कम होता है, तो इस वाले आयरन से नहीं होता ये. This is a different form of iron. It doesn't lead to any. Currently, I don't personally believe even GDM would be caused by this heme iron, but at least that study also talks about only about this. Next study. So these are the various success stories that we have already listed. Next, please. So these are the pioneers of Dr. V. Ramalinga Swami, who was director of AIMS for 10 years, then went on to head ICMR for 10 years, and he was a person who spent his lifetime in for iodine deficiency disorder. Dr. Pandav was a student, and he was started working on iodine in 1979, in the year which I was born. So they spent their lifetime for controlling the USI. So it took them 60, 70 years for that one intervention. Now we are able to do something for anemia. We have an intervention today's time, and more than intervention, we have the resources. The amount of resources, money government of India is putting in for this intervention that we didn't have the luxury 20, 30 years back. We were still a developing country. So we should be grateful that we are able to sort of truncate this intervention in 1 or 2 years. Next slide, please. And these are the way forward. Madam has already talked about. There are still serious efforts in strengthening you. So for the last point, I require your support, because whatever the work we are doing at AIMS and other institutions, scientists are working, unless until you come on board, we are not going to make a change in this. Thank you so much. Next slide.
2 minute film. We will see a 2 minute film. Small film. Sound.
आजादी के 75वें वर्ष में प्रवेश के बावजूद अभी भी कुपोषण देश के लिए एक बड़ी चुनौती बना हुआ है। इसके भयावह खतरे को देखते हुए खाद्य सुरक्षा योजनाओं में चावल की फोर्टिफिकेशन की रणनीति के प्रति भारत सरकार कार्यरत है।
सरकार अपनी अलग अलग योजनाओं के तहत जो चावल गरीबों को देती है उसे फोर्टिफाई करेगी, गरीबों को पोषण युक्त चावल देगी।
देश में कुपोषण की समस्या कितनी गंभीर है, इसका अंदाजा NFHS के आंकड़ों से लगाया जा सकता है। NFHS 5 2019-20 के पहले चरण में 22 राज्यों व केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों के आंकड़ों के अनुसार अनीमिया और स्टंटिंग की स्थिति अभी भी गंभीर है। खाद्य एवं सार्वजनिक वितरण विभाग यानी DFPD माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी द्वारा घोषित फोर्टिफाइड चावल को गरीबों तक पहुंचाने की पहल को पूरा करने के लिए पूर्णतः प्रतिबद्ध है। पिछले 2 सालों में DFPD द्वारा फोर्टिफाइड चावल की उपलब्धता और वितरण सुनिश्चित करने के लिए कई सार्थक प्रयास किए गए हैं। चावल के फोर्टिफिकेशन की प्रक्रिया में चावल में आयरन, फोलिक एसिड और विटामिन B12 जैसे सूक्ष्म पोषक तत्वों को मिलाकर इसे और पौष्टिक बनाया जाता है। फोर्टिफाइड चावल सामान्य चावल की तुलना में ज्यादा पौष्टिक तो होते हैं, लेकिन स्वाद, सुगंध, पकाने की प्रक्रिया सामान्य चावल जैसी ही होती है। फोर्टिफाइड चावल का नियमित सेवन महिलाओं, बच्चों और किशोरियों में अनीमिया के स्तर को सुधारता है और कुपोषण की दरों में कमी करने में योगदान करता है।
फोर्टिफाइड चावल खाने से हमारे परिवार का स्वास्थ्य बढ़िया है। पहले साधारण चावल मिलता था, अब ये पौष्टिक चावल है।
फोर्टिफाइड चावल का हर एक निवाला, स्वाद, पोषण और सेहत कारक वाला।
Now we can take questions. Our experts will reply.
So regarding the market production capacity, it is still around 17 lakh tons. So, but the demand is more, right?
Much actually, we are mixing 1:100. So 17 lakh means multiply by 1700. We are much actually more than what we need.
So there is no further
No,
expansion on the capacity.
not required actually. We excess capacity as of now.
2023, 77% of the target has been achieved. 134 lakh ton have been distributed under PDS, and whereas the target was 175 lakh ton. What is the reason why states are not lifting? Is there any availability issue or states are still hesitant?
It's actually it's happening over a period. So actually, while what you are talking about, the target is over 1 year, but actually areas have been getting covered in a phased manner. So now, as we speak, So the entire area of these 269 districts, entire ICDS, entire PM portion is now covered by fortified rice. And as we go along now, just to inform that except two states which have experienced some issues with regard to fortification in respect of getting blending machines installed in the rice mills, so except Tamil Nadu and Assam, जिन्होंने कहा कि हमको थोड़ा और टाइम चाहिए ब्लेंडिंग करने के लिए और एफआर के फोर्टिफाइड राइस सप्लाई करने के लिए बाकी सब स्टेट्स नाउ दे आर ओनली सप्लाइंग अस फोर्टिफाइड राइस थ्रू दी procurement network. So what FCI is not procuring or what states are not procuring depending on the category of the state is only fortified rice except these two states which have been given partial exemption until June 2023.
A few months back, your previous predecessor was telling that Madhya Pradesh had do not have the capacity to milling also.
अब एक्चुअली वो एक्चुअली बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा है पिछले आई डोंट नो प्रेजेंटेशन के अंदर वो दिखाया गया कि नहीं कि हमारी करीब 26,000 मिल्स हैं अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 26,000 राइस मिल्स उसमें से अब 19,000 में अब ब्लेंडर लगा हुआ है सो इवन इफ लेट्स से बाकी 7-8 हज़ार में नहीं है बट मे बी देयर आर मिल्स विच आर नॉट नाउ सप्लाइंग टू FCI दे कुड बी स्टैंड लोन राइस मिल्स ऑल्सो So as of now, with regard to FRK, now the major concern for us is ensuring quality of FRK. उसके लिए जो standards हमने बनाए हैं along with FSSAI, that is what we are now trying to ensure. FSSAI के साथ हमने meeting भी करी है, उसमें we are trying that we have greater surveillance on these FRK manufacturers. During April and May, we are holding workshops at the state capitals of all the FRK manufacturers so that they can be sensitized because there's a lot of expectation on the department because just imagine to supply fortified rice to 80 crore people is a big responsibility and we don't want to actually be found wanting on this. So that is why we are putting in place adequate safeguards, adequate surveillance mechanisms to ensure that the quality is ensured, that we have adequate capacity, the rice millers are sensitized. In let's say, अभी कोई एक केस हुआ था in Noida where we had to blacklist FRK manufacturer because of the substandard supply that he was making. So we need to have greater surveillance in the initial phases particularly so that the people know that this is not something that government will condone or government will ignore. We will come down very heavily on any of the FRK manufacturers or any of the rice mills which supply substandard food grades.
Like from this month onwards, all PDS will be supplied with.
Actually, as I mentioned, the target is March 2024. By March 2024, we will ensure complete universalization that the entire quantity that we are supplying under PDS will be fortified. So it will happen over the next 1 year. Right now, we are covering 269 districts. I said 291. Out of that, about how much? 22 are wheat consuming. So you're not counting those.
So 269 districts out of how many states?
That's part of your brief.
Okay.
27 states.
So those are getting covered plus all the Anganwadi centers and all the midday meal program PM portion. All that is now covered with fortified rice. And as I said, the target is March 24, but we are hoping that much earlier we'll be able to ensure complete universal. Yeah. So 735 minus 291. So there would be some wheat consuming which will not get covered obviously.
Any ideas out of 735, how many would be wheat consuming? 50% or 40%?
No, not that many. I can tell you the figures later.
Rajasthan, Punjab.
Basically, it's a northern part of the country.
20%?
Less than 20, I would say. Yeah. Yes, please.
You were saying that by March 2024, you will be covering the entire PDS rights report. You will be doing it earlier than March 2024. You are able to reach the target before 2024 or?
We are trying. The target given to us by the government is March 24. We need to universalize. But the pace at which we are now progressing, I am hoping that we will be able to do it earlier than that.
And secondly, there were a few months back, there were some reports that there is a body in FSSAI which is promoted by the same industry which is working as a chemical or the nutrient supplier for fortified rice? Is it like that?
I would not be able to comment on
Body
what's.
called FFRC.
Sorry?
Food Fortified Rice Center. This is an FSSAI,
Mm-hmm.
which acts as a promoter of fortified rice.
Right.
And it is owned or promoted by people who themselves are into, there's a massive conflict of interest in that.
No, but how can, because that must be a FSSAI, part of FSSAI, right?
No, that's an independent body.
Okay, I'll need to check. What is the name you said?
FFRC. Food Fortification
Okay.
Rice Center.
Okay, I'll find out. I was not aware. We'll find out about that.
So several international agencies like CIMIC have been proposing that bio fortification is the right method than like using blending method. So I mean they were not in fact prescribing this blending method for fortification of rice or wheat. So will the government consider this method bio fortification than the current process because it could lead to some health challenges according to some of these studies?
So I will of course request Dr. Yadav to respond to this, but just to give a preface, so all these options were examined by the government at that point in time as to what would be the most ideal mechanism. So keeping in view the urgency of the situation and keeping in view the practicality of actually getting it done, it was felt that this is the most efficient and effective way in attacking this issue of anemia. And secondly, the studies that you pointed out, of course, Dr. Yadav has cited multiple studies, global studies, Indian studies, which say that there is no adverse impact. And I was just also examining yesterday that the tolerable upper limit of iron for a person in a day, Dr. Yadav will correct me if I am wrong, is about 40 to 45 mg per day. And if we calculate that we are giving to an average PDS consumer 5 kgs of rice per month, and if we divide that by 30 days, we find that the daily consumption for him or her would be about 7 mg per day against a minimum tolerable upper limit of 40 to 45 mg per day. So it is nowhere near the level where toxicity can happen. But I'll let Dr. Yadav also respond to that.
Thank you, sir. The issue of toxicity comes when you are nutrient depleted. We Indians, I quote a term, have a iron hunger. We are all of us. We did a health camp in Niti Aayog. We did a health camp in Shastri Bhavan. We did a health camp in Nirvan Bhavan. 50% of the officers working there were iron deficient. I carry a hemoglobinometer with me. So if I do a random or screen all of us, 50% of us will be iron deficient. So, next time we can have a camp because that is when
We are serving you fortified rice today.
Coming to your query on biofortification is a very novel concept, but in India we have a challenge of providing this as asset to the population dam, the huge number of population. The first thing with biofortification that comes down is your production of the raw food. They are very costly interventions, and not only the cost can still be taken care of, but your per capita production of rice would decrease if you introduce biofortified. And they have not been scaled up in any country globally. They are still, it's like a fad, that organic food fad that you have. The challenge here is to feed people who are hungry, and instead of giving them food, you are saying please have cake, because cake obviously is better. I will not quote the Lewis Arimentonate on this, but that is where, at least as a scientist, I have a very strong view on biofortification as a strategy.
Some of the districts there were complaints, like say, for example in Kerala, two hilly districts where this anemic patients or anemic people with anemia are high. There were some complaints against distribution of fortified rice and it had to be stopped in a couple of months ago. So there were complaints also from the government itself, state government itself.
So actually,
did you look into this complaint?
Yeah, we looked into, as I said, it's because of the misconception which are there around the entire concept of rice fortification. So when we are looking at the scientific evidence, so in the face of all the scientific evidence, so that's the purpose of actually now having a conference like the one we are having, to disseminate that it is not something which is actually having any adverse impact on health. So there are also issues not only in Kerala. So maybe in Odisha also we got some issue where people felt that there's a plasticky thing in the rice. That fortified rice kernel is little plasticky in terms of appearance. So they also felt that we are serving them some substandard rice. So it will happen. Any kind of a product which is introduced in the market, there's a life cycle where people take time to accept it. So that is the phase we are going through now. And I'm sure these are teething trouble which will get sorted in the.
In Jharkhand also there was some issues.
Because people find that there is some kind of a material or some kernel which is not actually like rice, the color is slightly different. So people have this kind of misconception, but our people on the field also, the state governments also trying to clarify and get them on board.
So the Kerala Food Minister, in this recent conference of food ministers, he had also apparently requested that the indigenous variety of rice produced in Kerala, which has slightly more iron content, should be distributed instead of fortified rice. So
No, we have no issue. See, in case, let's say, any state would like to procure and distribute the rice or the paddy that they're growing in the state, they're most welcome. We have no issue with that. So that is beside the point. In case the states would like to do that, we are more than happy in their doing it. But whether that can substitute the rice fortification that we are now propagating is something which needs to be debated. Would you like to add something? Like to add something? Just 1 minute.
I just wanted to add that we were also pretty sort of surprised to hear that the original rice varieties from Kerala have much more iron and much more micronutrients, and we've lifted samples of that, and that's really nowhere close to the truth. The fortified rice variety definitely has much more micronutrients than the original varieties in rice, and I'm saying that basis lab reports that we have with ourselves. I'm Sharika Yunus. I'm with the World Food Program.
So I would like to add to that question. So for Kerala, they are asking for this exemption for the indigenous variety. So what is the take-off center that is they have to mandatorily covered by this fortification?
No, as I think she's clarified that we have no issue with that. But even if, let's say, we allow, for the sake of argument, it's not going to actually target the issue which we are trying to address. So anemia will not get addressed. The levels of iron are nowhere near what we would like to have.
Okay, I was just asking whether there is a chance for exemption or something. Are you thinking of such a possibility?
So, see, you've seen all the evidence. You tell me what would you like us to do?
No, I was just asking if it's a pan-Indian.
So it is something which is now accepted nationally. There are certain misconceptions. The state governments we are in touch with. Kerala also, there is nothing that we have got from them saying that we would like to be excluded from this program. So the entire country as of now is on board.
Sir, can you name that Noida firm which has been blacklisted from Noida?
I knew it when I said I don't remember, but I can tell you.
But sir, apart from this, what is the process or the mechanism to check the quality of fortified rice being provided for the TPDS, and how many percentage of
So 10%, yeah.
found like not good according to the standard?
So 10% samples are taken of any of the rice which is milled and delivered, and there the sample methodology is very well laid out. It's been continuing for quite some time. And then there are 49 laboratories, 49, 48 laboratories now which are NABL accredited and which are now competent to test these samples for these micronutrients to see whether they have the percentage content of iron, B12 and folic acid as we have prescribed. And we are putting in place a mechanism whereby in case any of the and the rice millers themselves need to be careful, because in case the sample fails, then they need to take the entire stock back. And obviously they would not like that, so I'm sure that they would also be more cautious in ensuring that the supplies are up to the standard specified. So I think probably in the press brief we mentioned how the number of blending machines and how the number of the laboratories. Yeah. So in your release that we given, we mentioned that the number of rice mills having blending infrastructure has increased from 2,690 in August 21, which is just about 1.5 years back, to now 18,227.
And so labs from 20 to 48.
And labs from 20 to 48. Yeah.
So what's happening on wheat procurement? At the end of the day, that will be the new.
So I think that is something which I think you would like to know. So broadly, just to give you a sense of what's happening, we saw inclement weather over the past 2 weeks, and there have been reports of some damage which has been reported from Punjab, about 16 districts, and Haryana, some parts of Haryana. The estimates are now being worked out as to what is the extent of damage. Uh, but overall, I'd like to tell you that the damage that we're expecting in terms of the production that we'd anticipated of 112 million tons, the shortfall that we're anticipating is going to be very marginal. Because while there is some loss of, let's say, production in Punjab and Haryana, we are also expecting that because of the low temperatures, which have been continuing for the past now almost a month, the yield will be more in the areas that are unaffected, and also it will be greatly beneficial to the areas of UP and Bihar where the late sown varieties have now going to come in the next a month or so. So they would also gain. So yield will be more in that part. So overall, that it will be the loss in production from what has been estimated would be very, very minimal. What it would be, I don't know as of now. We are collecting the reports from the state governments. But what could happen and what is happening is that there is some, let's say, some impact on the quality. So Madhya Pradesh already we've allowed them the relaxation in terms of luster loss, and similar requests we have also got from Haryana and Punjab. So as we speak, our people are in the field collecting samples and trying to see as to what has been the reduction in the FAQ standard, which we would need to relax if at all. So all that work is right now going on, and as far as we are concerned, we are still hoping, and we are fairly confident that the target that we had for procurement of 342 lakh tons, we should be able to achieve that target. And I think any misconception on that account, because there have been some traders who have been coming to me and saying that there is a huge loss, there is a panic in the market and all that. So I think we had a meeting yesterday also with the agriculture department, and I can tell you with a lot of confidence that there is no need for panic. There is no, let's say, major loss in production. Maybe some marginal loss may be expected, but that too, as I'm saying, in other parts, the yield is going to be better. So it might be the case after some time that we find that the production is as anticipated at 112 million tons.
So how much has been the procurement so far as on yesterday or?
I think it is about 2.5 to 3 lakh tons, which is more than what we had, much more than what we had last year at the same time. But actually, this time the harvest is a little delayed. So most of the procurement has actually happened in Madhya Pradesh.
So, sir, will you be relaxing the norms for procurement?
So as I said, we have still yet to get the report, but depending on the situation, we will do whatever is required to help the farmers, and also ensure that we have adequate stocks.
Carry on the discussion over lunch.
Yeah.
So